In a forgotten kingdom hidden deep beyond the Valley of Sunbirds, where the rivers hummed lullabies and the flowers whispered secrets, there lived 3 royal sisters known throughout the land not for their wisdom, but for their laughter. Daughters of a powerful king, their beauty was rivaled only by their folly. But what began as harmless mischief would awaken an ancient curse, one that no crown could protect them from. This is the tale of the 3 foolish princesses, and the terrible price of their games. In the heart of the kingdom of Ndolela, nestled among rolling emerald hills and gardens that bloomed all year round, there stood a palace carved from rose quartz stone and roofed with gold. This was a land untouched by time, where magic still flowed through the roots of trees and the winds carried the voices of ancestors. The king, Olumide the Lion-Hearted, ruled with a hand both firm and fair. His people prospered, his enemies bowed before him, and his name stirred pride across 7 valleys. But even the mighty have burdens, and his were his daughters. Princess Alika, the eldest, was radiant and clever, but her pride danced ahead of her wisdom. Princess Zina, the middle child, was as playful as a breeze but cared little for rules. And Princess Duni, the youngest, shone like the moon yet listened to no counsel, not even her own heart. Together, they were inseparable, 3 beams of light, yes, but ones that often scorched rather than shone. They spent their days laughing in the royal gardens, weaving tales of imaginary suitors, mocking the palace elders, and pulling pranks on ministers who dared lecture them on duty. No lesson ever stayed long in their minds. To them, the world was a stage, and they its golden performers. One morning, as the mist still kissed the hibiscus petals and the morning birds flitted through the dew, the sisters sat beneath the sacred Udala tree, its bark etched with symbols of their ancestors. It was said to be the heart of the palace grounds, older than the kingdom itself. "We are too clever for this place," Alika scoffed, plucking a blossom and placing it behind her ear. "I tire of the same old stories. Let's make our own," Zina said, her voice lilting like a bird's song. "We'll find that hidden spring the old women always whisper about, the one where wishes bloom." "That's a children's tale," Duni giggled. "But if there's even a drop of truth, I'd wish for a crown of eternal laughter." They laughed, loudly, recklessly, unaware that the Udala tree had stilled its leaves. Overhearing their talk, old nurse Nana, who had served the palace since Olumide was a boy, shuffled over, her bones crackling like dry sticks. "You joke with powers older than your names," she said sternly. "There are places not meant for royal feet. The spring of blooming wishes is guarded. It doesn't grant joy, it tests hearts." But the princesses only smirked. "Then we shall pass its test," Nurse Alika said, rising to her full height. "What is life without a little mischief?" Zina clapped with delight, and Duni hummed a tune of victory. The old nurse watched them vanish into the forest path, a cold wind brushing past her ankles despite the sun. Through winding trails and beneath arching canopies heavy with purple blossoms, the sisters danced their way deeper into the woods. Butterflies the size of hands fluttered past them, and monkeys chattered warnings from high branches, but the girls only laughed louder. After hours of wandering, they reached a glade none of them recognized, a place unnaturally still. At its center bubbled a spring so clear it seemed invisible, surrounded by strange blue lilies that glowed faintly even in daylight. "This must be it," whispered Duni. They approached, and as each stepped close, the water began to shimmer and shift. One by one, the lilies bloomed wide, revealing not pollen, but small golden eyes in their centers. A voice rose, soft and musical yet layered with centuries. "Only the pure of intent may ask. Only the wise of spirit may drink. Speak your wish." The girls exchanged thrilled glances. "I wish," Alika said boldly, "to be queen of queens. Let my word become law in every land. I wish," Zina followed, "to be forever adored, to turn every head, to be sung of in every tongue." "And I," said Duni with a wink, "wish to laugh forever, to know only joy, no sorrow." The spring hissed. The lilies folded shut. Then, silence. The sisters looked at each other, confused. Perhaps it needs time, Alika muttered. Or maybe it's all nonsense. They turned to leave, but the path behind them had vanished. Where once was sand-dappled earth was now a wall of shifting trees, their trunks pressed tight like guards at a gate. A low hum rose from the spring. And then, 3 shadows climbed out of the water. Each looked like the princess who had spoken the wish, but twisted. Alika's shadow wore a crown of bone and had eyes like empty hollows. Zina's reflection shimmered with vanity, her skin turning into mirrors. Duni's wore a permanent grin that stretched far too wide. They spoke in unison, "You wished. Now you must walk your wishes." Before the girls could run, the ground beneath them gave way, and they fell, each into her own vision. Alika landed in a palace of thrones, empty, endless. Every decision she made was obeyed, but her subjects were silent, staring, unmoving. She ruled, yes, but over statues. Zina woke in a hall of mirrors where every reflection adored her, clapped for her, whispered her name, but never let her leave. Her beauty became a cage. And Duni found herself in a carnival that never stopped laughing. Laughter echoed around her, even as she begged for silence. Her own voice dissolved into giggles she couldn't control. Back in the glade, the lilies closed. The spring stilled. The trees returned to silence. Nurse Nana, feeling a disturbance in her bones, dropped her basket of herbs. Somewhere, far away, 3 foolish girls were learning that not every tale was made for mocking. The sun had not moved in the sky. The garden where the sacred Udala tree stood remained still, untouched. No footsteps returned. No laughter echoed. Only the wind sighed through the branches, carrying a silence that made even the insects quiet. In the palace, King Olimide sat upon his throne, unaware of the absence that had begun to stretch too long. It was Nurse Nana who first sounded the alarm. When the sun began to dip and the princesses had not returned for the evening yam feast, her heart grew heavy like a drum in mourning. She approached the king with shaking hands and whispered, "They went seeking the spring, my lord. The one beyond the Udala tree." The king's eyes, so sharp and unyielding in battle, turned to glass. For even he, lion-hearted, knew the legends were not just tales to quiet children. He summoned the royal seers. Drums beat into the night. Fires were lit in sacred groves. The kingdom waited. But let us return to the girls, for time moves strangely when one walks the paths of spirits and spells. Princess Alika's realm at the throne of shadows. Alika sat upon a towering throne, sculpted from ivory and gold, yet it felt colder than iron. Below her stretched a vast hall where thousands stood, but unmoving. They wore royal robes, noble garments, eyes wide, mouths open mid-cheer, but all frozen. She rose and commanded, "Dance." The crowd stirred, but not to obey. Instead, they bent at the knee, again and again, endlessly, until the sound of knees cracking echoed like thunder. She screamed, "Speak to me." But their mouths only opened wider, until their jaws unhinged, revealing silence. Alika ran, her royal slippers echoing across marble floors. She climbed towers, burst through golden doors, but every room led her back to the same hall of silent subjects. Her crown grew heavier with each step, pressing down, biting into her scalp. She tried to take it off, but it had fused with her skin. That night, if night it could be called, she wept before her reflection in the polished stone floor. She saw not a queen of queens, but a girl trapped in her own desire to control. Princess Zina's realm at the Hall of Mirrors. Zina twirled before the endless mirrors. At first, it was a delight, each reflection clapped, blew kisses, cheered, beautiful. Divine. Glorious. She danced. She sang. She changed her gowns 100 times, each dress grander than the last, stitched with starlight, embroidered with praise. But the mirrors began to whisper, faster, closer, louder. More. Prettier. You are nothing when unseen. The cheers turned to commands. She could no longer look away. When she tried to step outside the ring of glass, the mirrors reshaped themselves, forming walls. She looked down, and her feet had become roots of vanity, grown into the polished floor. She tore off her golden bangles, her layered pearls. "Let me out," she begged. But her reflection sneered now, mockingly. Her face split into 100 warped versions, all of them still grinning. She covered her ears, but the praise had become poison. "I don't want to be adored anymore," she whispered. The mirrors shook. One cracked. A spiderweb line ran across her cheek in every reflection. Princess Duni's realm at the carnival of laughter. Duni spun beneath streamers that rained confetti. Clowns with painted faces danced around her, their laughter booming like thunder. Children with hollow eyes clapped and threw petals as she passed. At first, she laughed too. How joyful! How marvelous! But hours passed. The drums never stopped. The flutes played the same tune. Her cheeks hurt. Her throat burned. She tried to sit, but dancers pulled her up. She tried to cry, but tears turned into golden glitter. "Stop," she shrieked. But even her scream came out as a laugh. The carnival grew more frantic. The ground bounced like a drum skin. Balloons burst into screams. The moon spun in the sky, grinning with teeth. She ran into tents that changed shape, through doors that led back to the same spinning carousel of noise. Her joy had become a prison of echoes. And at the heart of it all was a jester, tall and still, with eyes like empty wells. He spoke without moving his lips. "Did you not ask to laugh forever?" She fell to her knees, gasping. "I only wanted happiness." The jester leaned close. "Then you should have known, happiness is not laughter. And laughter is not peace." Back in the real world, the kingdom had begun to rot with grief. The king summoned the forest spirits, offering the tears of his ancestors and the gold of his throne. But the spirits refused to meddle with the magic of the spring. "Your daughters walked willingly," said the tree sage of Wukai. "They must walk themselves back." But Nurse Nana, her love older than any spell, knew there must be a thread left uncut. That evening, she went to the Udala tree, lit a lantern of hyena oil, and whispered the names of the girls thrice each. She poured river salt at its roots and said, "Let me see where they walk." And the tree opened its eye. She saw it all, the throne, the mirrors, the carnival. Her heart nearly gave out, but she gritted her old teeth. "They were foolish, yes," she whispered. "But they are still children." Somewhere, in the hall of mirrors, a breeze passed across Zina's cheek. In the carnival, Duni paused. A sound beneath the laughter, a hum, familiar. And in the hall of statues, Alika looked up. The silence now felt different, like a breath held back. All three girls, still trapped in their realms, had, for the first time since entering, a voice that was not part of the curse. It was Nana's voice, old and cracked, but full of love. "You must give back your wishes," she whispered. "Not just want to. You must undo them yourselves." The curses were not shackles, they were mirrors. The girls began to understand. Alika stood and addressed her frozen court, "You need not kneel anymore. You owe me nothing. I am not your queen." And one statue blinked. Zina turned from the mirrors and faced her own trembling form. She bowed to herself. "If no one looked at me again, I would still be." And one mirror shattered completely. Duni, tears now falling freely, laughed no more. She whispered, "I want to feel all of it, the joy, the sorrow, the fear. I want to be real." And the jester bowed. The carnival music slowed, then stopped. In the Udala grove, the tree groaned. The earth split at its roots, and from the soil rose 3 glowing seeds. Nana gasped. She knew what they were. The girls were returning. The Udala tree groaned again. 3 glowing seeds, pulsing with the warmth of spirit light, floated gently from its roots and hovered above the earth like stars lost on land. Nurse Nana watched in silence, her old hands clasped. A breeze brushed her face, soft, fragrant, and ancient. From each seed, a figure began to take shape. Shadows drew into limbs. Mist became fabric. And light turned into skin. One by one, the princesses returned. Alika stepped forth first, her golden crown now faded and cracked. The hunger for power had drained from her eyes. What remained was quiet strength, and the tears of someone who had seen herself truly for the first time. Zina followed, her once flashing jewels dull now, her mirror-bright gown reduced to simple blue cloth. But her face, oh, her face. It shone not with vanity, but with calm. And Duni, dear, foolish, radiant Duni, walked last. The endless laughter was gone, and in its place was a stillness, like the hush after a storm. They embraced one another at the foot of the Udala tree, and when they did, the tree dropped a single white blossom into their joined hands. Only one who dies a little, whispered Nana, stepping forward, can live more wisely. King Olemide rushed to them as soon as the drums thundered the news. His royal robe billowed behind him like a wounded bird regaining flight. The seers wept. The people gathered. When he saw his daughters, changed and bowed but alive, he fell to his knees, an act no one in the kingdom had ever seen. "Forgive me," he said. "I gave you everything but the wisdom to carry it." Alika knelt and touched her forehead to his. "No, father. You gave us everything. But we were too foolish to know its weight." They returned to the palace not as children of luxury, but as young women with souls tempered by unseen fire. That night, the skies poured silver rain across the kingdom. It was said even the birds wept for joy. The days that followed, each princess took a different path. Alika, once obsessed with power, asked to leave the palace for a year to walk among the villages. She dressed as a commoner, eating from calabashes and listening to the problems of ordinary people. When she returned, she no longer wanted the throne for her glory, but for the peace of her people. She became a queen not in title, but in action. Zina, whose life had been mirrors and praise, burned her royal gowns and opened a house for orphan girls. She taught them to write, to sing, to speak their minds. She cut her hair short and no longer looked in mirrors, but in the eyes of those who listened. And Duni, a bright and impulsive, did not stop laughing altogether. But now, her laughter came with meaning. She trained as a healer, working with herbs, helping mothers give birth, and tending to the dying. She said, joy must be shared to stay alive. But the tale does not end with happy endings neatly sewn. Because in the heart of the enchanted forest, where the Udala tree once bloomed in full glory, something had changed. The spring beyond the garden was no longer hidden. More villagers began to whisper of seeing strange paths open in the woods. Some said they heard music in the trees at night. A hunter claimed he chased a deer only to end up in a place where the air shimmered and his skin burned with light. The 3 princesses knew what it meant. Their actions had stirred old magic. They had survived the spring's test, but now, the spring was awake, watching once again. They returned to the Udala tree together, years later, not as girls, but as women. "It's calling others now," said Alika. "Will they be as foolish as we were?" asked Duni. "Some," said Zina. "But perhaps they'll have someone to guide them." And so, they left behind a single scroll tied in blue ribbon at the root of the tree. It bore no command, only a question. "Why do you seek what lies beyond?" Those who answered truthfully were spared the curse. Those who lied walked paths that twisted back on themselves. Over the years, some came back. Others never did. But the Udala tree always knew. It listened. So if you ever wander into the thick forests of Odu Kingdom, and you feel the air change, if your ears ring with laughter that isn't quite right, or if a mirror reflects more than your face, pause. Ask yourself, what do I truly want? Because some springs do not offer water. Some gardens do not bloom for beauty. And some paths are not meant to be followed by the foolish. But for the three princesses, Alika, Zina, and Duni, their tale lives on not because they were royalty, but because they were foolish enough to seek what was forbidden, and wise enough, in the end, to come back changed. If this story stirred something deep in you, share it with someone who dares to dream beyond the ordinary. Like, comment below with your favorite princess and what lesson you took from her journey, and don't forget to subscribe for more tales where magic meets truth.